Hi, I'm Jackie Miller, and this is Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. I am thrilled to have Vanessa Reiser on this episode. Vanessa is a psychotherapist specializing in narcissistic abuse. She is also the author of Narcissistic Abuse, How to Identify, Escape, and Heal from Manipulative Toxic People. You may know Vanessa from her much publicized 285-mile run across New York wearing a wedding dress, and she's not done yet. You can follow Vanessa on Instagram at Vanessa Reiser, LCSW, and follow her upcoming run across Massachusetts and track her continued commitment to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse. Okay, hello, Vanessa Reiser. Thank you so much for joining me on Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist.
Thanks for having me.
It is so cool that you are joining me to hang out with this audience. I know that you are a wealth of information and you're doing such good work, and I'm so excited to get into all of it. You're a mom, you are narcissistic abuse survivor, you are an author of a book called Narcissistic Abuse, How to Identify, Escape, and Heal from Manipulative and Toxic People. And if people don't know who you are from all of that, they probably know you because you ran 285 miles across New York in a wedding dress to raise awareness, correct?
Yes, I did.
That is so freaking awesome. You're such a badass.
I know. I remember when I did that run, one of my friends and followers showed up on the run and she's like, I can't believe you're doing this. I thought I was crazy. And I said, you're not crazy. I'm crazy. Look what I'm doing. But it was really a great experience.
That is amazing. So would you mind even telling me, so how did it come about that you came up with that idea? Because I did see that you've done Ironman twice. Is that correct? Dang.
Yeah, I came up with the idea on a run. It was in the middle of COVID and I had just fled from this, toxic environment. And I was just in my head and I thought, how can I shine a light on this? I felt very compelled being a therapist that I had like this sort of duty to warn and get into this advocacy stuff. So when I graduated from University of Southern California, it was with a community organizing focus. And so the advocate in me was like fired up. I was like, this has got to be, we have to do something and shine a light on it. So that I came up with this kind of kooky idea. I went into one of those super famous places that they tailor clothing in Manhattan. They do most of Broadway. And I asked them if they could hack the wedding dress. And I was in there with a mask, during COVID. And they said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it for free. We really want to see you. And I was crying. I just felt very seen and heard. So it wasn't just for, at that time, the victims, many silent victims. It was my own healing journey at that time. Now it's really transformed into helping others. But in that moment, I was still reeling from, this process and kind of trying to figure out what was even going on, and to feel seen and heard by so many people. And at one point my son was like, Mom, you're trending. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? It was cool. And it was at that time, it was very transformative to sit in my head and all those miles and kind of process everything going on. And we, subsequently did New Jersey, Connecticut, and we're doing Massachusetts in June this year. So we'll keep at it. At some point, my feet will probably fail. So I'd love to pass the baton. So if anybody wants to run in a wedding dress across any of these states, please feel free to message me.
You know what? That's actually an amazing idea. Yes, if anybody would like to run and pass the baton. California, maybe the vertical, not so such a good idea.
That's right.
But maybe the horizontal, maybe from just here to go east. That is amazing. What a great idea. So other people then join you on this run?
Yeah, there were people that would join me on the run here, there, and everywhere. People did it virtually as well. So you can always join me virtually this year. I usually do it on Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day, which is June 1st. So on or about June 1st this year, we're going to traverse Boston with my team who are so supportive and wonderful. We have such a blast. It's so much fun. It really is cool because you look like a loon. People are honking. They have no idea what's going on. This woman is just running around with like a veil.
But that's the beauty of it, because they go, what is going on? And then a lot of them try to figure it out. And it's cool because in today's day and age, you just pop open your phone and say, women running in a wedding dress, and you're going to pop up. And this is actually such a full circle moment for me too, because when it was just dawning on me what the hell was going on in my marriage. And I was trying to escape as well. I was Googling all this stuff and you came up and I thought, oh my God, that's so great that somebody's like doing something totally shocking almost, for lack of a better word, that it does raise awareness because you're like, what the hell is a woman doing running in her wedding dress? It works.
Yeah, I think it really did sort of, for me, check other boxes too, because I love to run. It really is my therapy and the other therapies. But yeah, that is a therapeutic experience for me. So selfishly, it still works. I just enjoy it.
Yeah, that is awesome. And you also then wrote a book. And when did that come about? Your narcissistic abuse, the book about
Yeah.
narcissistic abuse.
So one of my best friends is a literary agent, and she was pitching it to all of the bigger publishing companies, the Run, right? So she sort of capitalized for me on the Run, and she's so brilliant, Kelly, and she really helped me to put myself out there in front of publishing companies. And it got picked up by Hachette, which is one of the top four publishing company. So I wrote a book. It took a really long time, and it really fuses the concepts of narcissistic abuse and cult abuse. So people don't understand really that you're in a cult of one when you're in these intimate relationships, because they're using sort of age-old tactics that cult leaders use. All cult leaders are narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths. All cult leaders. They just have managed to manipulate the masses. There are small cults. We saw this with the stolen youth cult. We saw this with Manson, sort of these like little, cultlets, these little
Yeah.
pockets of people. So it's really no different when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. You are being controlled in your mind the same way you could be in a cult. So you're in a cult of one, or if you're in a family that's being sort of driven by a narcissist, a sociopath, or a psychopath, then you're in that family dynamic. That too is like a smaller cult, could be 5 people. But I think people really don't understand that you could be super smart, Vanessa Reiser, highly educated, badass, and still get mind controlled. So it really matters not. I have plenty of very, very wealthy, established, intelligent clients that come to me and are totally duped by a grifter or a con person. So it sort of runs the gamut. And I think it's important for people to understand that it is being in a cult. And there's a lot of shame that people carry, but I was never in a cult. Oh, yeah, you are. You just didn't realize it. But the book is really designed to shine a light on fusing those concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just said so many things I want to touch on. One, I agree. I have multiple clients that are therapists. I have multiple clients that are psychiatrists. I have multiple clients who are attorneys. And I know that you feel, and one thing I love to say is that all of them are extremely intelligent and it does not matter. In fact, I want your opinion on this. I have this theory that these kind of people almost love to go after like intelligent, do you think is it either like it makes them look good, or is it a challenge for them to go after these people who are extremely intelligent, almost conquering someone whose mind they can control? That's a challenge for them. What is it?
I have a little bit of a different theory. I think they cast out a lot of lines, right? And so the person who bites, so just picture somebody just sort of throwing out lines everywhere. Whoever sort of bites is the supply, or the main supply. And they sort of have this gaggle of supplemental supplies. There's always somebody feeding them at all times. So it could even be a business partner, a child. They're kind of exploiting and manipulating on the periphery. So there's the main supply, who in an intimate relationship would be, the wife or the fiance or the girlfriend. And then there's these others, but I don't know that they discriminate. I don't know that they discriminate on sex or identity, gender identity. I don't think that they discriminate on anything other than, does this have a pulse, and are they going to buy my bullshit?
That's a good point. And also with this shame, I felt it. I see it in all of my clients' faces and in their words. What do you have to say to people who are victims of this, that are feeling so much shame about this relationship?
Cut it out.
Yep.
Because it's really not adding any value. In fact, I could shift the perspective on that really quickly. What it really tells me about people is that they're very empathetic, right? So, I understand and honor having shame around it. However, it goes towards your, being able to forgive and be empathetic and be loving and kind. So I think those are positive attributes. So a good example of this was Mark Vicente from the Nexium cult, who sort of not only dealt with Keith Raniere, but also was recruiting people, like pulling people into. So I have to imagine there's a level of shame that comes even from, doing aiding and abetting your abuser. And like a lot of people do this in the intimate relationship, they will help their abuser to abuse the abuser's ex, right? So getting involved in the court cases and sort of, so they have
Yes.
even like a layer, like a tier up of like shame around when you go through that. But I think you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And so I don't think it's going to add any value in terms of healing to live in shame. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. In fact, it means you're probably a good person, and that's why you were able to be manipulated.
No, it's true. I always say this is a really messed up compliment that they targeted you because it means you're awesome. It means you're smart. It means you're empathetic. It means you're a really good person. But it's the truth. It's horrible that that's the target on your back. But I know for me, I had to come to the realization that it was a lesson eventually I had to learn. As much as, maybe my ex is at fault for so many things and not a good person, I feel like if it wasn't him, it might have been someone else. Because unfortunately, I had this lesson to learn. I had the people pleasing, the no boundaries, the, kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate, for sure. And it's not okay that they treat people that way. But I know for me, it's something I had to accept that there were some lessons still I had to learn in life.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think that's a great perspective, is to just look at it as an opportunity to grow. And I think also having gone through that portal, which it sometimes feels like, it's like you now have a new ability to assess. And actually, Dr. Ramani and I were talking about this at dinner. Yes, we are friends.
I saw
Um,
you on her podcast. It was awesome.
yeah, a few weeks ago, we were talking about the shame that people carry, and not just the shame that people carry, but people do this thing, Vanessa, not everybody's a psychopath, this kind of stuff. As I'm sort of in the dating world, like you can't, and she and I are in agreement, on the idea that if you get nothing else from this, you get to be really careful and mindful about who you let into your circle. If you get nothing else, you trust your intuition and pay attention to the things you've learned. Don't get sort of caught up in this narrative of like, not everybody's a psychopath, and you have to forgive, and then I'm gonna listen to myself and be really careful. So I think it's a gift in some ways now that we have this like ability to assess.
Sure. And the trust your instinct thing is so important because I feel like we do all have really good instincts to begin with, but unfortunately, I ignored mine on many levels going through my relationship, and getting back to that is so important. And like, okay, now I'm going to listen, and now I'm going to take it seriously and do something about it when red flags go up, or, I just get that feeling in my gut. So it's
Yeah,
such a good point.
there were red flags, I would say probably around 4 months. So I tell people when they're dating to take notes, in your phone, a little pink flag, so that you can sort of look for patterns, and don't ever just like gloss over it, write it down, because we'll forget. It's like it's death by 1,000 cuts. So you want to make sure you're kind of documenting what's going on. And then at around 4 months, kind of maybe fake a cough or see how they deal with you being sick, or a little fracture in their fantasy world. But yeah, like I pay attention to those kinds of timelines, red flags, pink flag. I'm watching, I'm still really careful about who I let in.
Absolutely. Something else in your book I know that I love is that you talk about, how to get away and sort of get, and what do you have to say to people who are maybe in the relationship right now in terms of escaping?
Yeah, I would say hide money, hide your precious belongings. I kept hearing when I was enduring this, like little whispers of like, hide the baby pictures, because my son is 24 years old. So he has real physical pictures. That's not a thing anymore, but there were like bins and bins and bins of, cherished sentimental belongings that I had in the house. I have an $8,000 triathlon bike. There were things that I kept hearing it like a little whisper, like put it somewhere, protect these things. And that little whisper ended up saving me so much heartache, because I started to things away. So you want to really get, a therapist, first of all, that's going to understand this, because you need to be coached on how to get an attorney and hide things, including money, and record things, document things, get the passport, get the kids, prepare. It's a big thing, because the abuse really doesn't even start until you try to get away.
It's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother ball game. Oh my gosh. So true. And that's so interesting you say that, because not just things of value. The bike, it's things that are extremely important to you. And that's so interesting that your instincts were like, this is something that's so interesting that I can't replace. They're hard copy pictures, like I said, back in the day. And for some reason, you knew deep down that it would be something, and that's exactly what they do. Something that he would try to harm or take away from you.
Oh yeah, and there were things that I knew that I never got back that were definitely thrown in the fire pit. I mean, I could just feel it in my gut that those things were seriously destroyed. But I was able to, save the things that I cherished. And as I, kind of look back, those were way more important than, the Ferrari and all of the garbage and superficiality that I was caught up in. It was these precious items, like son's like Pikachu that he would drag around, and like his art projects. And we made a human cell out of like styrofoam balls, and that kind of stuff I can never ever replace. And so yeah, those are the kinds of things that you don't realize that will be wrecked, because it's just a nuclear fallout when you go through that post-separation abuse. It's like, it's for sport. Anything that you care about. I mean, look at the cult leader. They will collect collateral to blackmail you. They will, take videos of you and leverage that against your children. And they are really ruthless, and they've been doing it for so long. So they're particularly good at it. And you're never going to be as good at it as you think you're going to be. So be as good as you can and get support from people who have studied it. Like, I really think a psychopath now. I can think, okay, this is based on the work that I do and seeing how they manage, and prepare the smear campaign, let's say long before they're even breaking up with you and discarding you or vice versa. They are laying the groundwork the entire time for the destruction of this relationship for sport. I mean, this is their thing. It's a playground. So I'm pretty good at thinking like a psychopath, and even I will miss shit. And I mean, I look at world leaders that are particularly dangerous, and I think about what, kind of carnage they could create. It's really scary stuff. But even myself, as skilled as I feel I am, I would never be able to imagine some of the stuff that they think about.
Yeah. And, another in that thread, one thing I noticed is because they love to create narratives during the relationship or marriage or whatnot that say aren't even true. So, for example, say you messed up a birthday date that the whole family's supposed to go to for a neighbor kid, right? And they will take one tiny thing and make it like you can't keep anything together. You are so unorganized. You always mess stuff up. Why can't you just put something in a calendar? And the repeat of the brainwash. Next thing you know, there's this narrative. You missed one birthday party. You start to wonder yourself, right? Maybe I am really unorganized. Maybe I really am a shit show. And then they will take that stuff later in the post-separation abuse. So you're right. It's mind blowing the groundwork that's being laid to use later.
I remember figuring that out when I got left in Cape Cod. I got back home, and it was many months later when I was going through the post-separation abuse, and I realized I better go do one of those FOIL requests or Oprah requests in the state of New Jersey where you can kind of dig up police reports. And the police were called that day, and I got the police report back, and it said that I was drinking. And I was like, wow, it was a Tuesday morning, and I had to drive 6 hours from Cape Cod to get my monkey ass back. And I wasn't drinking, and nobody likes to drink more than Vanessa. Like I'm let's have wine. Like, but that narrative was going to be the narrative, and that was how this was going to be played out. And I thought it was chilling to see that this groundwork was being laid all of those months ago, and other things were being laid all of those months ago. And it's really, really hard when you're outspoken, tough woman, because a lot of times if you're dealing specifically with a covert narcissist, they will easily shift that. Like, I would even believe, yeah, Vanessa's probably, I mean, look at her, she's kind of a jerk, right? So that kind of stuff really would work in my case. So it was chilling because I am so outspoken and I am so tough that it was gonna, it could look like you're being victimized by me, and that it would freak me out in those moments. Thankfully, nobody was subscribing to it, and I don't think it does now, but it scared me to think that was going to be the narrative. I was really freaked out by that. But they start this very early on. It's not the smear campaign people think is starting at the end of the relationship. It is not. They are laying that groundwork. They are telling family members, that you are not well. They are telling family members that you don't cook. They are telling family members whatever they want to perpetuate for later on so they can be like, oh, I told you. They will even, this is a good one, they will even tell the new supply that their ex, their crazy ex, puts them on dating app and actually puts them on things out so that when they get caught, yeah, this
Oh,
I told you, I think a psychopath. So that
damn.
when they get caught, they can say, well, you know who did that.
Oh, I always say, why am I so shocked? I'm shocked. I'm not shocked. I'm shocked. That is wow. And it
Exactly.
makes, yes, absolutely. It makes perfect sense that they would do so. I mean, I always say, like, energy it must take when they lay at bed at night and conjure these things up. Like, the amount of like mental space and the energy it takes is just mind blowing.
But they enjoy that. That's
Yeah.
their game. This is a playground. They are like, what kind of chaos am I going to cause tomorrow?
Yep, yep. And you're right. And just how it's been going on all along. And I'll remember it was a couple years after my divorce, and I was hanging out with I would say the couple that I got in the divorce, a couple, you get some couples, they get some couples. And we were out all on a bike ride. And I was always say, who's babysitting me this weekend? Because I was single, right? And I'd be going out with my couple friends. And so I was being babysat by some friends of mine one weekend. We're all out on a bike ride, and the husband starts to tell me that years before they were all on a daddy-daughter trip and the kids were all playing. And my ex out of nowhere starts us like, you guys know, you guys don't really understand what it's like to live with Jackie. And he said, they were like, what's going on? What is he doing? And thank God a lot of people don't subscribe, but they just test the waters to see who does. And he said the other dads and I were looking at each other like, does he really believe that we think that Jackie's the awful one? Luckily, in that case, they didn't believe it, but you were just testing the waters. Who can I sprinkle seeds in to let everyone think she's psycho or wow.
Yeah. And it starts very early on. I put that in my book. The smear campaign is not post-relationship. It starts very early on, and they try to shift that narrative. They do it with their own children. I would say with a high level of frequency, especially if they're grooming those children. But it's tricky because it's hard to describe something that you could barely process yourself.
Yeah.
How do you get other people to see it when you yourself are still trying to figure out what the hell even happened?
Right. And because the crazy narrative has usually been going on for a while, you have to be careful the way that you articulate these issues because they've already got that seed planted. And it's very easy to look crazy as you're talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I oftentimes still, on occasion, far less than originally, but I still have a lot of trauma. So I oftentimes on some occasions, I'll be talking to my friends and I sound exactly like my clients. And then I have to kind of, let myself kind of, have at it. And then, my friends are so amazing and they kind of let me do that. But I think it happens less and less, but it's really, really hard to process even now. I mean, I think the biggest part for my clients and myself is the injustice of how, and that's what our friend Courtney Gilmartin is working on in terms of the coercive control stuff in the courts. But that's really going to be the ground zero for healing for people, is to see justice happen.
Absolutely. And so I'm glad you brought up Courtney because for those of you that have been listening to the podcast, she was the last guest I had on the last episode, and you guys have been working together. What are you doing together?
Well, she and I are just starting to kind of collaborate. I think because I'm sort of piss and vinegar and she's kind of like really has this really sweet and solid disposition and a very level head. I think, the combination is great. My clinical expertise and her dealing with the law specifically is going to go a long way, because when my clients come to me, they are dealing mostly with the judicial system. I would say by and large, that's the biggest issue they're facing. And so we try to arm them with biopsychosocials and understanding around the law and PTSD, which is a diagnosis, one of the only the only diagnosis that has liability because something or someone caused it. But so there's a lot of I think power in collaborating and people locking arms to, be involved in this movement to shine a light on it. But the judicial system is really It's really corrupt. I mean, it is so broken and it's causing so much damage. It's essentially human trafficking and domestic terrorism, period. People are making a ton of money off the exploitation of children, and it's horrifying to witness. I saw in my own case a judge that totally got it wrong, and I couldn't believe how offensive. It really felt like you got raped and then you went into the courtroom and then they said to you, well, why were you wearing that? You shouldn't have been wearing that. And so you get this compounded trauma. So you're going through this abuse, and then you look to the people who are supposed to protect you and they make it worse. And so how do you manage that? How do you recover? Of course, you're going to sound crazy. You have trauma. Of course, you're going to break down. How could you not? I mean, it's a really horrifying scenario, really a nightmare for a lot of people. And I don't have a horse in the race in that regard. My son's father and I co-parent phenomenally, and I have no issues, but I see these people struggling. And if I tell my heart breaks, I'm sure you've seen it.
I do. And sometimes I just have to stop after a few clients and take a walk and a deep breath, because the conversations I have are so unbelievable as we're talking about, I'll just say, mothers afraid to talk about abuse of their children and themselves in the court system because they will be punished. And as we talk through it, and yes, and we talk strategy, because that is the reality. And we talk about what they're doing with how to protect themselves and how they're working with their attorney. And then I have to go for a walk and think, am I having conversations over and over again about how do you protect yourself from having your children taken away because they're being abused and the court's going to give them to the abuser? Like, I have to go do something, like you said, go for a run, go work out, go have a glass of wine with friends, something to get my mind off it, because it's so irrational. You can't spend too much time on you just have to focus on it and help people. You can't, because it's so irrational.
Yeah, I have a client. She's in her 70s. She's been dealing with legal abuse for the last 9 years. I think there's over 2,000 motions filed. And we talk about how sometimes we talk about her faking her own death to get out of this because there's almost no other way. I mean, these are literally the conversations I have with my clients. When I spoke to Dr. Ramani about a recent court battle that I was involved in, she said to me, she's like, the only advice I give people is, as it relates to family court, is don't go. I mean, it's so scary to say, but it's not a utility. It is literally designed to harm you. And so if you can avoid it, don't go. Don't file the restraining order. I mean, that's scary. These are the conversations, because as soon as you step foot in there, you're just going to be punished by everyone around you. In court, it was like, okay, Miss Reiser, you call yourself a therapist. You do couples counseling, Miss Reiser. I mean, it's like you're dragged through the mud. I mean, I still have a $115,000 student loan. I call myself a hell of a good therapist. Like, imagine, I mean, it's my calling. I literally love what I do in every regard. And imagine, these fools not even having any idea what they're talking about, shaming a victim. So and I'm pretty powerful in terms of my voice and even just my disposition. And I was really horrified by that experience. So imagine, not having any of the credentials and having the potential to lose your children. I can't even imagine. I think I would lose it. I'm not kidding. So I really give my clients so much credit. They're warriors.
Oh, 100%. Just so many people out there just fighting for their lives, their kids' lives, figuratively, but and literally in some cases, as we know, which is so sad. And so I just really appreciate the work that you're doing too. It's amazing. Thank you. And like you said, piss and vinegar is awesome, because we need to raise our voices and get together and collaborate. So I love that you and Courtney are doing that. And I want you to talk to about, when did you're the CEO and founder of Teletherapist. How did that come about? When did you found that?
So this was in 2019. I started to think about opening up my own practice. And I was working before that at the Jewish Board in the Bronx at an outpatient mental health clinic, very triage style. So we got gangbangers and, trauma left and right. And I mean, just working in the city was just the best job. I mean, I had I was in the belly of the beast, as they say, and there were so many things happening. And it was really a good lesson out of research program to kind of get involved in that. And I was also working at a satellite program at the High School of American Studies in the Bronx, which is an amazing institution you have to test in. So You can't just buy your way in. And so a lot of like, I think it puts out more Nobel Peace Prize winners than any institution. So there were a lot of really smart kids going to Yale, and
Wow.
that was a cool experience. And then High School of American Studies in the city doing a school social work. So I, started there, and then I opened up my own practice, and I always knew that I was going to have to then deal with white people problems after leaving the Bronx. And I, kind of didn't realize that it was going to turn into this niche that I am now doing based on my, experience. But yeah, that's how it started. And it was on a run as well that I came up with the punny little teletherapist thing, because it was all going to be telehealth. At that time, COVID hadn't even occurred.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a little bit ahead of its time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's how it came to be.
Okay, that is amazing. So, and I know that you have a few therapists then working at that. And just so everybody knows,
It's tell.net.
I'm sorry, teletherapist.net. Okay, got it. Got it. Got it.
And there are clinicians that work under me. One of them specifically is my right-hand person, because she does a lot of the narcissistic abuse as well. And we are hiring, so.
Okay, and so then how I know that you are licensed in, I have it here, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, and Florida. Okay, but people can call from all over the country. How does that work? Or
Yeah, I can provide life coaching out of the states that I'm not licensed in.
right.
I was trying to get licensed in all the states, but it's just cumulative, so they want everything. It's just such a bureaucratic mess. I don't know why they should really just unhand this based on COVID, but it's a moneymaker, so here we are. But I can still provide life coaching, and I have my own referral service at teletherapist.org, which is the nonprofit that I run, where we consult and send people to a narcissist savvy clinician in your respective state.
Okay, awesome. That is amazing. Again, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. What else do you want people to know that are going through this, whether they're, just trying to leave, or they're in the thick of it, or trying to heal after? What message do you have for them?
I'd say it takes a long time to heal, but it takes longer if you don't do the work. So studying it, don't be afraid to study it. I would say 80% of your energy should be in studying it for a while, because you want to get clarity. And once you really get the clarity, then you can sort of titrate off of it and then shift into moving beyond it. But don't be afraid to study it. I find people who sort of sweep it under the rug find themselves in these relationships again, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So
Right.
just don't be afraid to lean into, getting clarity around it. And then I just want you to know that you're not alone. There are so many people that have gone through this that are coming out of the woodwork now that maybe didn't even realize they had a narcissistic family member, etc. So I just want people to know that I believe you, and that there's, light at the end of the tunnel. You can look for those little God winks and silver linings along the way, because they are there.
I love that. God winks. Oh, that's awesome. I know. Okay, so people can find you on Instagram at Vanessa Reiser, and it's Reiser LCSW, correct? And how can they contact you or find out more about the run?
So I usually post it on my Instagram, but if you want to find me, you can email me at Vanessa at Tell, a therapist.net. And you can look for my book. It's on pre-order on Amazon. It's called Narcissist. That's the name.
Awesome. And I will be putting it on my website as well, on my recommended readings at JackieMillerCoaching.com. So go to Amazon, go to my website, wherever you guys want, and get her book for sure, because it's got everything from the learning that she just told you to do to, the nuts and bolts of all kinds of other things of how to deal with this and heal and escape, which again, I love, because I know that's just a big question in women's minds about how am I going to get out of here? It took me 12 years out of my 16-year marriage.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I knew it was going to be a shit show. Guess what? I was right.
Yeah, it's always gnarly to get out of the clutches of that. So good on you that you managed to do that, because that time was going to pass with or without you getting out of there anyway. So
exactly, I know. And then it's another podcast, get into the whole kid thing and everything. But yeah. But hey, just so you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I agree with that. It's not an easy journey, but it's worth it to get out. In my opinion, I know it's scary. Please be safe. But yeah, get out here. And because there are a lot of us out here that want to help. So thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on the podcast. I hope that you'll come back again soon. Would love to have you again. And good luck with the run. I can't promise I'm going to be a part of it.
That's okay. You'll be there in spirit as
I
me.
will. I'll be cheering you on. Okay, thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. We'll talk
Thank you.
soon.